because
Yeah, what would you want to keep? Is that, would you say that training and the things that you've
yeah.
done?
So that's part of what I was going to say. So I'm kind of going into the keep now, because I would keep a lot of what we've done. Like I feel like it's a dream in some ways. I think that the condensed schedule that we did with children allows for deeper learning. I think the spreading, like, we didn't try to shove so much in. We actually like really stretched out learning in a way that allowed for kids to go deeper. That's one. What I would keep is that approach, right? The self-sufficiency of children. We had 5-year-olds getting on their iPads on their own, logging into their Google Meets, things that, I mean, yes, we addressed things like we had more problems with the parents than we did with kids. Like the parents were like, I can't do this. I'm like, just give your kid the phone, they'll figure it out. Like you don't need to do this. Your kid will press the button and they'll know how to do this, because kids innately have been doing this. Their brains are wired these days for this. So they play on their parents' phones all the time. I said, just give them the phone. You're thinking this through too much. So that was part of it. The keep would be the kids really, really being able to direct their own learning, like being able to get on, being able to, we go from in a classroom, like I'd see over supporting of children to like, now, no, leave the kids, let them think that through, let them figure it out. And the teachers had no choice. So I love that, because they couldn't just grab a hold of the kid, right? They had
Right.
to let them and talk them through it step by step. It's like ABA, right? Like the piece, every single piece that I have to explain it to you this way so you can achieve it on your own. I love that. I love the honestly, I like paper and pen. I need to write everything. Even when you were talking, I had to write it down.
Right.
But the product, I like the product to be typed. Right. So like, I want our kids to continue that. I want them to know, yeah, you draw it out, you write it out, you think it out in your notebook. But when you're producing it and when you're finalizing, put it in, put it online, put it, I don't know, type it or whatever it is. So I like that end of things. I liked the product pieces of it, like keep the way the kids had to showcase their work. We do a lot of work in schools where it's like, not finished, right? But with this, it felt like, no, you have to submit this. This is coming online. Your classmates are going to be able to see it in the Google Classroom, like, so it was like a lot of like, oh, let me see my classmates work, and the competition, but healthy in some ways. So I love that. And this is going from like 1st through 5th. We did a lot of inquiry work. We looked at student writing online and the products that they could accomplish, like we did little inquiry groups on every grade level for the struggling writers. And the teachers were like insanely excited at the end. Like, I don't think I've seen my teachers ever get more excited about the growth of their kids in the 8-week inquiry cycle, because the kids produced this work online and they were successful at it. So it really gave the teachers a different perspective and sense of accomplishment about what kids can do and what they could do. They went into this, and I constantly remind them, I'm like, remember you said you couldn't do this? Remember you said our kids couldn't do this? Remember, all that memory of we can turned into like success. So I feel like that it's keeping the memory alive of the successes is so important, because the impossible became possible in 1 year.
Right.
And I just feel like I never want that to go away. What was the middle one, Rashawn?
I think the thing is, well, you've sort of alluded to it. Some things that you've seen from the old, from the current, that you're like, you know what, that's officially changed. I think you've sort of alluded to it in that one answer, like how you approach kids, how you approach learning, making a learning student centered, really speaks to the change we're talking about. And it's some of the things that Kimberly and I were talking about with education in the future. Like, okay, so how do we go about this, the same in ways of, what I say same, mean like the goal is the same, to educate children and to be better educators. But you're also talking about, well, we can still have that same goal, but just change the way we're doing it. So
Well,
what you're saying is,
the other thing is honestly, to build upon is I'm going to do a lot of work this summer in blended learning, like having my teachers understand the value of choice. And to continue this work as a principal, I feel like it's my job to get in front of it and be able to teach them and model for them. Because I'm even doing choice boards for the teachers. Like this summer, I'm going to do a lot of the modeling of the work that I want to see in their classrooms. The other thing I thought was amazing was the splitting of work. We have ICT on every level in my school, which I love.
I see.
And ICT is collaborative teaching, like the special ed and general ed teacher.
Okay.
So that's a huge model in my school. And it's one of my favorite models. Self-contained to me is, I always say to the teachers, we do an interesting model at the school, which is very progressive, but basically kids come in and when they're 5 and they're, you know, in a self-contained class, which is 12-1. And I always say to the parents, why don't you give them a chance in the bigger class, see if they are successful with the 2 teachers. So I say all that to say, typically the parents agree by mid-year and the IEPs are kind of switched, because I say there's no self-contained bus, there's no self-contained McDonald's, there's no self-contained job. So let's get your kids in with the, you know, the kids that are typically developing, you know, quote unquote, and really mix it up. The model works beyond my wildest dreams, because kids that were barely speaking are like full language now, because they're, you know, they're exposed to peers that are of different functioning levels. So I said that because one of the union arguments that I really faced at the beginning, and all schools in New York City faced, was this idea of, if you are ICT, you must be in the same room. And what I kept saying with social distancing, impossible. We can only have 12 kids in a room. Where are we having 2 teachers with 12 kids? It's not happening. So what I kept saying is, you could live stream in. We could have a teacher in this room and a teacher in this room, and you could both be looking at each other's kids. So I bought cameras, for the 2 cameras for each room, a big speaker for each room. My teachers helped me research all this. I'm not a genius. Like, we all did this together. But so basically, when we were coming back in this year, we were in and out. We got open and closed and open and closed because of COVID cases. So basically, the ones that were in could be live streaming with the special ed teacher at home, or the special ed teacher in could be live streaming with the general ed at home. So basically we won that argument, because it was like, no, you don't have to be in the same room. You just have to be providing that service. I love that model, because in my head, I'm like, wait a minute. We could have a special ed teacher with a specialty on a camera coming in live, like, oh, you know what? Teaching from the room over there, doing the read aloud, the kids listening. And in this room, like, there's just so many opportunities for sharing of teaching and learning in a way that people never collaborated. Like, they didn't collaborate in the same way before.
Right.
You know, it was the expert in the building on, let's say, poetry can teach a whole grade level, and the teachers and kids can learn from that expert in poetry. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or a math lesson that's amazing. The other teachers can listen in, and so can the kids. And we're all like, oh my God, I want to do math like that. Like, there's such an opportunity for learning. So that to me is something that I have to switch up some way in my school, so people continue that practice, because that is how we become the best educators.
It's 6 o'clock.
Understood.
Learning from each other.
Understood.
Throw away is the fact that we did not have Wi-Fi in my school, and it has been the most excruciating, horrible experience ever. We've escalated it to everywhere in New York City, and the reality is, we should not have gone through this year without Wi-Fi in a building. De Blasio should have given free Wi-Fi to all of New York City, and that I stand firm on, and that should not have happened. And I don't know why it didn't happen. With the millions, billions, I don't even know how much money was spent. That would have been the smartest way to get all of us streamlined in the approach to teaching and learning for this past year. So we've used a lot of our own data and personal hotspots in our building. So.
Wow.